Millionaire Mistress seduces him while his pregnant wife is away, never expected her sudden return. In a glittering penthouse high above the bustling city, a quiet secret threatens to shatter the lives of those who believe they have everything. Damon Carlyle, charismatic millionaire and beloved philanthropist, appears to have the perfect marriage with his radiant, pregnant wife, Elizabeth. But when Elizabeth travels abroad to safeguard her health, a seductive stranger seizes the opportunity to stake her claim. Camilla Monroe, beguiling and relentless, slips into Damon's world with promises of thrilling passion. Little do they know, Elizabeth's sudden and unexpected return will unearth every hidden desire and betrayal, setting off a powder keg of drama neither mistress nor husband can escape. Elizabeth Carlyle had grown up in a serene neighborhood in Boston, nurtured by her loving parents who believed in honesty, compassion, and loyalty. All her life, she dreamed of building a family home that radiated warmth and stability, something she found lacking in her college relationships. So when she met Damon Carlyle, an up-and-coming tech entrepreneur, his confidence and devotion seemed to promise everything she'd ever wanted. They married in a lavish ceremony attended by business elites, socialites, and close friends. Damon's star soared as he founded Carlyle Innovations, a company devoted to pioneering smart home technologies. Over time, Damon's net worth skyrocketed, and soon enough, the couple found themselves the owners of a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, frequent guests at elite galas, and philanthropic darlings of the high society pages. But for Elizabeth, the highlights were simpler, their quiet nights watching movies, Damon's morning kisses over breakfast, and eventually the joyful discovery that she was pregnant with their first child. Having struggled with minor health issues early in her pregnancy, Elizabeth's doctor suggested a less stressful environment for her second trimester, ideally away from the relentless swirl of New York City. That was how Elizabeth found herself on a plane to Switzerland, traveling to stay with her longtime friend Harriet Brown, a holistic wellness specialist with a private clinic near the Alps. The plan was for Elizabeth to spend a few peaceful weeks abroad, focusing on her health and preparing for the baby, while Damon continued running Carlyle Innovations from home. Before leaving, Elizabeth felt a twinge of doubt. Damon had grown a bit distant, nothing overt, just a subtle distraction in his eyes sometimes, as though a portion of his mind was forever tethered to the next big deal or the next rung on the social ladder. But when she looked into his eyes on the day of her departure, he seemed determined to allay her worries. "I'll join you as soon as I can," Damon said, holding her hand at the airport terminal. "Things are hectic at work, and we're about to close a monumental contract, but I'll be there in a heartbeat if you need me." Elizabeth tried to ignore the uneasy quiver in her stomach. She kissed him goodbye, focusing on the bigger picture. They had a child on the way, and Damon's drive had always been part of what she loved about him. Yet that night in Switzerland, as Elizabeth settled into the tranquil bedroom Harriet prepared for her, she couldn't push away the creeping sense that Damon's calm assurance masked something unsaid. She brushed it off as anxiety, the natural worry of a pregnant woman grappling with change. After all, she had never doubted Damon's commitment before. Little did she know, the stage was already being set for a heartbreak she'd never have thought possible. Far across the ocean, on the top floor of their Manhattan penthouse, her husband was about to meet a woman who would exploit every vulnerability left by Elizabeth's absence and unravel the life Elizabeth had so carefully built. The day Elizabeth boarded her plane, Damon found himself in a swirl of back-to-back meetings at Carlyle Innovations. Negotiations for a major government contract with the city of New York consumed his every waking minute. His executive assistant, Gina Hall, had never seen him so frenetic, always rushing from one call to the next. When he finally wrapped up the day, Damon felt an odd emptiness upon returning to the penthouse. Elizabeth's usual presence, her laughter, her affectionate glances, her gentle reminders to unplug, was painfully missing. The place felt too quiet, save for the hum of air conditioning and the distant rumble of city traffic. After a late dinner of reheated leftovers, Damon changed into casual attire, planning to review documents for the next day's negotiations. But a single glass of whiskey turned into two, then three. By midnight, he sat in the dimly lit living room, laptop open but neglected, his mind drifting. A swirl of longing and restlessness found its way into his chest. He missed Elizabeth's reassuring presence, but at the same time, a small, reckless part of him savored the unstructured freedom of her absence. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Damon's first thought was that it might be Gina with urgent papers, but when he checked the security camera on his phone, the screen displayed a woman with sleek auburn hair and smoky eyes. She wore a stylish coat and clutched a small folder. He recognized her, Camilla Monroe. Camilla was a consultant who had been introduced to him by a mutual acquaintance at a corporate gala the previous month. A freelance brand strategist, she had offered her services to polish Carlyle Innovations' image. They'd exchanged business cards, but Damon hadn't thought much of it until now. Curious, he buzzed her up. She stepped into the penthouse with an assured confidence, shedding her coat to reveal a fitted black dress. "I hope I'm not intruding," Camilla said, an apologetic smile on her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I heard you might be finalizing a big contract, and I have some branding ideas I think you'll love. Thought I'd catch you before your schedule got any busier." Damon found himself momentarily speechless. He was aware of the subtle tension in her posture, the lingering gaze she cast around the penthouse. She set down the folder on the marble kitchen island, explaining how a rebranding campaign might leverage the upcoming contract's publicity. He listened, sipping whiskey, mind still hazy from the emptiness that had hovered around him all evening. When she finished outlining her pitch, he cleared his throat. "Your timing is unexpected," he said, forcing a chuckle. "But I appreciate the initiative." Camilla's smile deepened, revealing perfect teeth. "I believe in seizing opportunities," she replied, leaning closer than necessary, "and I wanted to ensure my ideas weren't lost in the shuffle." Though Damon recognized the flicker of attraction in her eyes, he told himself it was harmless. Camilla was an ambitious business contact, not a threat. So, what if she arrived unannounced, late at night? The best deals often arose from after-hours spontaneity. Yet as the conversation wore on, the lines between professionalism and personal intrigue began to blur. Camilla exuded a confidence laced with flirtation, and Damon, disarmed by Elizabeth's absence and the whiskey's heat, found himself leaning in. He told himself it was just conversation, nothing more. But beneath that veneer, a dangerous spark was being lit, one that would soon threaten everything he held dear. Camilla Monroe understood the art of subtle seduction better than most. Raised in a modest home in upstate New York, she learned early on that ambition and determination could open doors. Money could not. By the time she was 30, she had forged a path as a high-end consultant, working with tech moguls and celebrity brands. But her real talent lay in reading people's vulnerabilities. That night in Damon's penthouse, she sensed a gap, the lonely hush left by his pregnant wife's absence, and exploited it. She engaged him in a spirited debate about brand perception, occasionally touching his arm to emphasize a point, letting her laughter linger just enough to stir a flicker of male pride. Soon, Damon found himself inviting her to sit on the plush living room couch while he fetched fresh glasses from the bar. She praised his achievements, complimenting the penthouse's design, the city skyline view, and the personal touches that suggested he was more than just a stoic businessman. At each gentle nudge, Damon relaxed further, lulled by her confidence and the ambient glow of the city lights. When midnight gave way to 1 in the morning, Camilla made a show of checking her watch. "I've kept you too long," she said, rising with a feigned sense of propriety. "We can continue discussing this tomorrow or whenever you're free. Let's finalize a plan to get your brand exactly where it needs to be." Damon walked her to the elevator, heart still drumming with the mix of whiskey and the intangible thrill of their conversation. Before stepping inside, Camilla offered him a slow smile. "I'll be in touch," she promised. "There's so much more we can do together." As the elevator doors slid closed, Damon stood there, a cocktail of guilt and excitement swirling within him. He told himself it was perfectly normal to enjoy the company of a driven professional contact. But deep down, he couldn't deny how easily her presence had soothed his loneliness more than it should have. The next day arrived too quickly. Damon woke with a dull headache and a sense of unease. In the harsh light of morning, he resolved to keep things strictly professional with Camilla. He was a married man, soon to be a father, and that meant boundaries. With Elizabeth away, he had to be doubly careful not to invite complications into their lives. But Camilla was relentless. 2 days later, she scheduled a meeting at his office, bringing a series of polished proposals. Gina Hall, Damon's assistant, politely offered her coffee, but Camilla refused with a breezy laugh. "I prefer a quiet lunch with Damon. If he's free, discussing creative strategies in a relaxed environment is always better," she told Gina with that warm, disarming smile. Caught between his responsibilities and a strangely growing sense of camaraderie with Camilla, Damon accepted. Over an upscale lunch at Le Rivage, they hammered out ideas for a futuristic branding campaign to coincide with Carlyle Innovations' potential government contract. Camilla's arguments were persuasive, her pitch deck immaculate, but it was her unwavering attention, her eyes locked on Damon, her voice layering praise with challenge that enthralled him. By dessert, they were bantering about everything from public relations to personal passions. Camilla artfully steered the conversation away from Elizabeth, focusing on Damon's ambitions, dreams, even his occasional fears about fatherhood. She listened intently, offering just enough personal anecdotes to weave a sense of intimacy. And Damon, lulled by her charm, found it increasingly difficult to maintain that mental barrier he'd promised himself. He reminded himself that Elizabeth was the woman he loved, the one carrying his child, but each time Camilla leaned forward with genuine interest shining in her eyes, the lines began to blur once more. Elizabeth's days in Switzerland unfolded with a serene routine: morning yoga sessions with Harriet, leisurely walks around the mountainous trails, and prenatal checkups at the clinic. The fresh alpine air helped soothe her body, and for a while she reveled in the calm. Yet her mind never fully settled. She called Damon regularly, hoping to bridge the distance through shared anecdotes and updates about each other's days. Initially, he answered with warmth, detailing the challenges at Carlyle Innovations and claiming to miss her presence in their empty penthouse. But over time, Elizabeth picked up on subtle shifts. He became more curt, calls were hurried, and messages often went unanswered for hours. Harriet noticed Elizabeth's restless fidgeting after one particularly brief phone call. "Is Damon okay?" Harriet asked softly, handing Elizabeth a steaming mug of herbal tea. "You seem worried." Elizabeth forced a smile, wrapping her hands around the cup. "He's just busy," she replied. "That new contract is massive, and I know him when he's in work mode. Everything else fades into the background." Harriet studied her friend's face, lines of concern deepening. "Busy is one thing, but shutting you out is another," she said. "Don't dismiss your instincts if something feels off." Elizabeth sighed. She trusted Damon, but Harriet's words rattled her. The next few nights, she texted more frequently, her messages a mix of support and gentle reminders that she was there for him. His replies became sporadic: late meeting, call you tomorrow, or swamped at work, love you. By the fifth day of these short, impersonal texts, Elizabeth's anxiety grew. She decided to set aside her pride and phone Damon late in his evening, knowing he'd be at home if he truly was done with the day's hustle. He picked up on the third ring, sounding slightly breathless. "Hey, Liz," he managed. Elizabeth sat up, heart racing. "Sorry if I woke you," she began. "Are you okay?" A brief pause crackled through the line. "Yeah, just was heading to bed," Damon said, voice oddly tense. In the background, Elizabeth thought she heard the faint clink of glass, but she couldn't be certain. Forcing a light laugh, she tried to keep her voice steady. "Are you wearing yourself out again?" A beat of silence. Then he exhaled. "Yeah, it's just constant, you know? Meetings, calls. I can't wait until you're back. How are you feeling? Is the baby okay?" She relaxed slightly at his mention of the baby. "Everything's fine here. The doctor says I'm in good shape. But I miss you. Are you sure you're all right?" Damon's answer was immediate. "I'm fine, I promise. The deal is at a critical juncture, so my mind is all over the place. Don't worry about me. Focus on your health, okay?" Elizabeth didn't push further, not wanting to appear clingy or paranoid. They exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then Damon ended the call, claiming exhaustion. But as Elizabeth laid back against the pillows, an unsettled feeling pooled in her stomach. He's too guarded, too elusive, she thought. Her instincts whispered that something was amiss. She stroked her baby bump, trying to reassure herself that Damon was simply overwhelmed. Still, a small voice inside her wondered if Harriet was right, if there was more to his distant behavior than the demands of business. She resolved to speak to Damon again soon, more openly, maybe even suggest an earlier return if her health allowed it. But little did she know that across the ocean, an entirely different scenario was unfolding, a scenario fueled by late-night whispers, fleeting touches, and a blossoming attraction Damon had tried and failed to contain. Camilla's infiltration into Damon's life soon went beyond after work meetings and brand strategy lunches. She found excuses to join him for business dinners, offering to help refine pitch materials with a feminine touch that might appeal to the city officials. Damon, caught between pride in her marketing savvy and the thrill of her attention, agreed time and again. One night, Gina Hall, ever vigilant, grew wary of Camilla's presence. She cornered Damon after a staff meeting, lowering her voice so others wouldn't hear. "Mr. Carlyle," she said, eyes full of concern, "is everything all right at home, with Mrs. Carlyle away?" Damon bristled at the question. "It's fine, Gina. Why do you ask?" Gina hesitated, carefully choosing her words. "Camilla, she's around a lot lately, sir. And sometimes it doesn't feel strictly about business. I'm worried about your reputation." A flash of guilt and annoyance flickered in Damon's chest. He forced a tight smile. "I appreciate your concern, but it's under control. She's vital to the brand campaign right now." Gina nodded, stepping back. "I understand. Just be careful, sir." Later that evening, Damon planned to head straight home after a demanding day, but when he stepped outside his office, he found Camilla waiting in the lobby, a coy smile on her lips. "I wanted to run some last-minute ideas by you," she said in a purr. "Maybe over dinner." He hesitated, mind replaying Gina's warning. Then he remembered Elizabeth's lonely voice on the phone. He should probably just go home. But Camilla's unwavering gaze hooked him again. A flicker of excitement overcame his caution, and he relented, telling himself it was strictly about work. They ended up at a modern Japanese restaurant, seated in a private alcove. Over delicately presented sushi and steak, Camilla presented polished slides on her tablet. But as the meal wore on, the conversation drifted from corporate talk to personal anecdotes, her childhood dreams, his hopes for fatherhood, her fascination with travel, and his love of architecture. Marriage changes people, Camilla mused at one point, swirling sake in her cup. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. How has it changed you, Damon? He paused, uncomfortably aware that Elizabeth's name was rarely spoken in Camilla's presence. It's made me more mindful of responsibility, he said carefully. And with the baby on the way, I want to provide a stable life, Camilla nodded, leaning forward. Her perfume was subtle yet alluring, reminiscent of jasmine. It's admirable. But stability can also become a cage, can't it? You have all these big dreams, and sometimes marriage makes you choose caution over ambition. Something in her words stirred Damon's restlessness. Elizabeth supports my ambition, he insisted. She's always been proud of what I do. Camilla smiled, feigning innocence. Oh, of course, I'm not implying otherwise. But I understand the pressure you're under. It's nice to have an outlet to remember you're not just a husband or father-to-be, but also a man with his own desires and goals. The conversation felt like a slow dance, each step drawing them closer to a line Damon had never intended to cross. By the time they finished their meal, it was nearly midnight again. Instead of heading separate ways, Camilla casually suggested they share a nightcap at his penthouse to finalize a few slides. A swirl of alarm, tinged with exhilaration, tightened Damon's chest. He knew exactly what it would look like. His mind wavered between caution and a yearning he couldn't fully deny. At last he gave a curt nod, telling himself it was just one drink, one final review of strategy. Nothing more, he thought. I'm in control. But in truth, the unspoken tension between them was a spark waiting for a single gust of wind to blaze into a wildfire. And so they climbed into his chauffeured car, heading toward the penthouse that Elizabeth once filled with her bright laughter. The same penthouse that now stood vulnerable to Camilla's clandestine charms. They arrived at the penthouse in a hush. Damon's footsteps echoed against the polished marble floor, heart pounding with a conflict he tried to suppress. Camilla removed her coat, draping it over the back of a chair, revealing a sleek black dress that framed her figure. He led her to the living area, flipping on a lamp that bathed the space in a soft, warm glow. Camilla admired the view through the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights twinkling like distant stars. Damon fetched a bottle of his favorite bourbon, carefully pouring 2 glasses. They sipped in silence for a moment, the tension palpable. Then Camilla opened her tablet, bringing up slides about brand partnerships. She perched on the edge of the couch, patting the cushion next to her for Damon to join. He sat, maintaining a deliberate half-foot of space between them. Their conversation began professionally enough, discussing marketing angles, rollout timelines, press releases. But as the minutes ticked by, her voice turned softer, her posture leaned closer, and her hand brushed his arm once, twice. Finally, Damon set down his glass. "I think we've covered everything," he said, clearing his throat. "It's late." Camilla didn't move. Her gaze locked onto his, a challenge simmering in her eyes. "It is late, but you're not rushing to bed, are you?" He glanced away, ignoring the swirl of heat rising in his chest. "Actually, She placed a hand on his thigh, a gesture that sent a jolt of alarm through him. "Damon, you work so hard, and you're so alone here." Her voice was a hushed entreaty. "Don't you ever want to feel free?" He stiffened. Every rational thought urged him to push her hand away, to remind her he was married. And yet, for all his inner discipline, a part of him was drawn to her audacity, the sense that she was offering a thrill he had unconsciously craved. He thought of Elizabeth, gentle and trusting, an ocean away in a Swiss clinic. Guilt jabbed at him, but his body yearned for something immediate, something dangerously alive. "It's just a moment," Camilla whispered, leaning in. "A moment nobody else needs to know about." Time seemed to stretch. Damon's heart hammered, the noise of his conscience clashing with a sudden, reckless desire. Camilla's lips hovered inches from his, her breath warm and inviting. Just one kiss, the voice of temptation murmured. Just a taste of something new. He didn't remember exactly who moved first. A spark flickered, and suddenly they were kissing, tentative at first, then hungry. Damon's mind screamed warnings, but the thrill drowned them out. Camilla pressed closer, and in that heated exchange, he felt every barrier crumble. Somewhere, far from the surface of this moment, Damon knew he was crossing a point of no return. But he was powerless to resist the rush of seduction. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Camilla's eyes glowed with triumph. She slid her arms around his neck, and he didn't stop her. Later, as the city drifted toward dawn, Damon lay awake, pulse still racing. Camilla slept beside him in Elizabeth's bed. Shame coiled in his stomach, but the damage was done. With the hush of night as witness, the line between loyalty and betrayal had been shattered, setting the stage for an unraveling that neither he nor Camilla could control. The next morning, Damon awoke to a rush of guilt that struck him like a physical blow. He slipped out of bed before Camilla stirred, hurrying to the bathroom. Staring at his reflection in the mirror, he hardly recognized himself. Elizabeth's face flashed through his mind, the woman who had built a life with him, who was carrying his child. He thought of her gentle laughter, the unwavering trust in her eyes. What have I done? He showered quickly, unable to shake the sour feeling that clung to him. When he emerged, he found Camilla in the living room, dressed in last night's clothes. Scrolling through her phone with a cat-like satisfaction, she glanced up with a languid smile. "Morning," she purred. "I ordered coffee and pastries from the cafe downstairs. I figured we might talk strategy before heading into the office." He swallowed hard, mind reeling with the enormity of their betrayal, yet part of him still throbbed with the memory of the night's passion. Clearing his throat, he forced a polite nod. "Fine. But let's keep this quiet, all right?" Camilla's eyes glittered. "Of course, I'm not looking to cause trouble for you. But we'll be working closely, Damon. Is that what you want?" He hesitated, aware that ending whatever this was would be the wisest choice. Still, he couldn't bring himself to fully cut ties. Maybe it was the guilt that paralyzed him, or perhaps a lingering spark of forbidden attraction. Finally, he answered stiffly, "Let's focus on the contract. That's our priority." She smirked as if she knew how easily she could reignite the flame, but she let him maintain his pretenses for now. Throughout the day at Carlisle Innovations, Damon tried to bury himself in work. He avoided Gina's searching glances and sidestepped Camilla's pointed stares whenever they passed in the halls. Yet a swirl of unease followed him, tarnishing every victory. By late afternoon, Gina cornered him again, handing him documents that needed urgent review. "Mr. Carlisle," Elizabeth called. "She wanted to know if you have time to speak tonight." Damon's chest tightened. "Thanks," he said gruffly, taking the papers. I'll call her later." Gina nodded, concern flickering across her face. She waited a beat, then ventured softly. "I hope you're okay, sir." Mrs. Carlisle seemed worried. He mustered a tight smile. "I'm fine, Gina. Just busy." That night, he went home alone, telling Camilla he needed to rest. Even so, his mind churned with the memory of their intimate betrayal. He avoided the master bedroom, choosing instead to lie on the living room couch. When Elizabeth called, he tried to sound normal, but she immediately sensed his distance. "Damon, are you sure everything's all right?" she asked softly. "I can't help but feel you're off." He swallowed, the lie catching in his throat. "Just exhausted," he murmured. "The contract is draining me." She sighed on the other end. "I understand. I'm doing better here. Harriet says I might be able to come home sooner if all continues smoothly." A bolt of panic shot through him. "That's good news," he said, voice faltering slightly. "But don't rush. Your health is paramount." He ended the call, heart hammering. The mere thought of Elizabeth returning suddenly, seeing him entangled in this sordid affair, filled him with dread. Yet he also felt a strange anticipation, a perverse sense of living on the edge that made him feel alive. Even as it threatened to destroy everything, Damon told himself this madness had to end. He would finalize the contract, sever ties with Camilla, and beg Elizabeth's forgiveness somehow. But each promise he made to himself cracked under the weight of Camilla's allure. He stood at the crossroads of reason and desire, edging ever closer to a catastrophe that no measure of careful planning could avert. As the days turned into a week, Damon juggled the high stakes of his professional life with the tangled secrets of his personal one. Camilla continued her subtle campaign of flirtation, turning up at the penthouse sporadically, always with a flimsy business excuse. Despite his best intentions, Damon found himself unable to entirely push her away. Each stolen kiss or late-night rendezvous only deepened the emotional quicksand. All the while, guilt gnawed at him, manifested in restless nights and uneasy phone calls with Elizabeth, who unknowingly navigated her own anxieties thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, word of Damon's close collaboration with Camilla began to trickle through the office grapevine. Gina overheard whispers of them dining alone at exclusive restaurants, or Camilla leaving Damon's penthouse in the early morning. Though no one could confirm the truth, rumors swirled. Alarmed, Gina once again approached Damon in his office. "I don't mean to intrude on your personal affairs, Mr. Carlyle," she said, quietly, "but the team is talking. This is the sort of speculation that could harm your reputation and Carlyle Innovations." Damon pressed his fingers to his temples, feeling a migraine coming on. "I appreciate the warning," he said. "I'll handle it. Handle it before it spirals," Gina insisted. "And if you need help, maybe confide in someone who can offer guidance." He nodded brusquely, not daring to meet her eyes. Confide in someone? Who could he trust with this disgraceful secret? Certainly not Elizabeth, who remained blissfully unaware, nor Harriet, nor any of his business associates. He felt more isolated than ever, trapped in a cycle of desire and remorse. That evening, a storm blanketed Manhattan in heavy rain. Damon returned to the penthouse, determined to lock himself away from any possibility of seeing Camilla. To his dismay, he found her sitting in the living room with a glass of wine, the lights dimmed to a sultry glow. "Who let you in?" he demanded, though his pulse quickened at the sight of her. She feigned a hurt expression. "Your doorman recognizes me. I told him we had urgent branding plans to finalize." He shook his head in frustration, but she rose gracefully, crossing the room to stand before him. "Are you going to throw me out?" she asked in a low voice, trailing her fingers along the lapel of his jacket. "Or are you glad to see me?" A thunderclap outside mirrored the turmoil in Damon's mind. "Camilla, this is getting out of hand," he breathed. "People at the office are talking." "My wife," Camilla pressed a manicured finger to his lips. "Shaish, don't talk about her right now." She leaned in, her perfume wrapping around his senses. "I know it's risky, but that's what makes it exciting, isn't it?" He wanted to protest, to forcibly remove her from his home, but her kiss silenced the last protests of reason. The storm outside raged, and inside so did the tempest of their entangled desires. Each lightning flash illuminated the lines of guilt etched on Damon's face, but he gave in again, sinking deeper into the madness that Camilla cultivated. Hours later, as the storm eased, Damon stood by the window while Camilla dressed to leave. He felt hollow, his reflection in the glass a man he hardly recognized. "This can't go on," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Camilla strolled up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "It doesn't have to be forever," she cooed, "but while it lasts, let's not deny ourselves." Her words chilled him. He realized with mounting dread that the longer he entertained this affair, the harder it would be to extricate himself without catastrophe. And somewhere across the Atlantic, Elizabeth, his devoted, pregnant wife, was inching closer to returning home, blissfully ignorant of the betrayal unfolding in her absence. Switzerland offered Elizabeth a haven of crisp air and tranquil vistas, yet her heart remained unsettled. The closer her pregnancy approached the third trimester, the stronger her longing to be by Damon's side. Despite Harriet's assurances that all was well physically, Elizabeth couldn't shake the sense that something was amiss back home. She decided to speak with Harriet openly about her worries. One afternoon they sat on a terrace overlooking the snow-capped peaks, wrapped in blankets to ward off the autumn chill. Elizabeth sipped herbal tea, then glanced at Harriet. "I'm thinking of returning sooner," she confessed. "Damon keeps telling me he's busy, but I hear this tension in his voice." Harriet studied her friend's anxious face. "Your health is much better, and the baby is fine, right?" she asked. "If you feel compelled to go back, maybe that's your intuition guiding you." Elizabeth nodded slowly. "I don't want to be paranoid, but I can't ignore how distant he sounds. Normally, Damon would share every little detail, especially about a big contract. Now I get short updates, or he brushes off my calls altogether." Harriet sighed. "Men handle stress differently. But you also have good instincts. If you feel he's in trouble, emotional or otherwise, it might be time to trust your gut." Later that day, Elizabeth called Damon, determined to probe gently. The phone rang several times before he picked up, voice breathless. "Liz, hey, sorry, can't talk long. I'm in the middle of something." She tightened her grip on the phone. "I just wanted to let you know I'm planning to come home next week. The doctor here cleared me to travel safely. And Harriet says I'm in great shape, so there's no reason to stay." A beat of silence. Then Damon's tone wavered. That's sooner than we planned. Are you sure? Maybe you should enjoy the rest." Elizabeth frowned, her heart pounding. "I've rested enough. I miss you, Damon, and I want to be with you before the baby arrives. Is that a problem?" He forced a laugh that sounded hollow. "Of course not. It's just, the contract is at a critical stage. I'll be swamped, and I won't have much time to spend with you." She closed her eyes, uncertain why his words felt like a lie. "I understand. Still, I'd rather be near you, even if you're busy." They ended the call without much warmth, leaving Elizabeth more convinced than ever that something was wrong. Within 2 days, she had booked her flight, packed her belongings, and hugged Harriet goodbye. When Harriet walked her to the car, she pressed a slip of paper into Elizabeth's hand. "This is my contact if you ever need me to fly over for support," Harriet said seriously. "Promise you'll call if things get complicated." Elizabeth gave a grateful smile, though nerves danced in her stomach. "Thank you, Harriet. I hope I'm just overthinking." Yet as the car pulled away toward the airport, Elizabeth couldn't deny the creeping dread that whispered Damon had changed. She braced herself for the possibility that her homecoming would reveal truths far more unsettling than she was prepared for. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Damon slept fitfully in the master bedroom he once shared with Elizabeth, his dreams haunted by the image of her gentle smile colliding with Camilla's smoldering stare. The world he'd built on carefully curated appearances teetered precariously, awaiting the shockwave of Elizabeth's early return. It was nearly dusk when Elizabeth's flight touched down at JFK Airport. She stepped off the plane, heart pounding with both excitement and apprehension. The baby gave a little kick, as if sensing her emotional state. "We'll be all right," she whispered to herself, gently patting her stomach. "I just need to see Damon, talk this through." She had chosen not to alert him of her exact arrival time, thinking a spontaneous reunion might be a heartfelt surprise. She imagined him lighting up at the sight of her, whisking her into a gentle embrace. That comforting fantasy sustained her through baggage claim and the car ride home. However, upon stepping into the penthouse, she found only silence. No notes, no welcoming hug from Damon. The faint hum of the HVAC system was the sole greeting. Confused, Elizabeth called his phone, no answer. She left her luggage in the foyer, wandering through the rooms that felt strangely unfamiliar. In the master bedroom, she noticed subtle changes. A few extra pillows askew, the faintest hint of unfamiliar perfume. A prick of unease threaded through her. She sniffed the air again, realizing it wasn't a scent she recognized from her own collection. Perhaps a guest visited. Maybe it's Gina's or some colleagues. She tried to quell the flicker of suspicion. Scrolling through her messages, Elizabeth saw one from Damon earlier that day, referencing another late meeting with city officials. Maybe he's still at the office, she reasoned. Exhausted but unable to rest, she decided to head there herself. She wanted to see Damon's face. The moment he realized she was back. Half an hour later, Elizabeth stood in the gleaming lobby of Carlisle Innovations. A security guard recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Carlisle, we weren't expecting you." "Should I alert Mr. Carlisle?" She forced a smile. "That's all right, Mark. I'd like to surprise him. Is he still upstairs?" The guard's face shifted to mild uncertainty. He was, but he left about 20 minutes ago with Miss Monroe. Elizabeth's smile faltered. "Miss Monroe?" He nodded. "Yes, Miss Camilla Monroe. She's a branding consultant. They've been working closely on the new city contract. They left together." A sudden hush seemed to envelop Elizabeth. "Together? Did they say where they were going?" The guard shrugged, oblivious to her growing discomfort. "Some restaurant, maybe?" They both seemed in a hurry. Elizabeth forced herself to remain composed, thanking the guard. She turned away, heart throbbing in her chest. She'd never heard of Camilla Monroe before. Why would Damon be at dinner with a branding consultant so late, and so often that the security guard knew her by name? Elizabeth's phone beeped with a text from Harriet. Just a friendly check-in. She ignored it, focusing on the swirl of emotions overtaking her. Something is definitely wrong. Determined to find answers, she pulled up Damon's last text, gleaning he was likely at a high-end restaurant near the City Hall district. She hailed a cab, adrenaline surging. Her mind churned with worst-case scenarios, but she clung to the hope that there was a benign explanation for all this. Damon wouldn't betray me. Not now, not when we're about to have a child. Yet the whisper of that foreign perfume lingered in her mind, and the guard's casual remark about Miss Monroe stung like a warning. She didn't know it yet, but the truth that awaited her that evening would confirm her deepest fears and ignite a confrontation that would tear the veneer off. Damon's carefully guarded secrets. Nightfall cloaked the upscale restaurant's exterior in glittering lights. Elizabeth stepped out of the cab, her heart pounding. She scanned the sidewalk for Damon's familiar silhouette, her nerves coiling tighter with each passing second. Through the window, she spotted him, seated at a corner table with a striking woman, presumably Camilla Monroe, leaning close, smiling in a way that made Elizabeth's stomach churn. Elizabeth couldn't see Damon's expression clearly, but his posture hinted at intimacy rather than a simple business meeting. Summoning courage, she pushed open the restaurant's glass doors. A hostess approached, but Elizabeth silently walked past, eyes trained on that corner table. The moment she reached them, Damon turned, and the shock on his face spoke volumes. "Elizabeth?" he breathed, half rising from his seat. "What are you? You're back?" Camilla glanced up with a slow, assessing blink. She didn't move, but Elizabeth sensed her coiled confidence like a panther suddenly aware of another predator. Elizabeth forced a tight smile. "Yes, I'm back. I wanted to surprise you." Her gaze shifted to Camilla. "The first see I'm the one who's surprised, though." Damon stuttered. "Camilla and we were just discussing branding strategies." Camilla offered a smooth extension of her hand. "Camilla Monroe, branding consultant," she said, voice dripping with polite civility. "Nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Carlisle." Elizabeth ignored the handshake, turning her attention to Damon. "I arrived at the penthouse, but you weren't there. Mark, the security guard at your office, Said you left with Miss Monroe. Damon swallowed, colour draining from his cheeks. Yes, we're finishing up some last-minute details for the city contract. Elizabeth, I can explain. Camilla stood gracefully, brushing invisible crumbs from her sleek dress. I'll give you a moment, she said, picking up her purse. Before walking away, she flashed Damon a brief, cryptic smile. I'll see you tomorrow, Damon. We still have a few points to finalize. Elizabeth held herself rigid, resisting the urge to confront Camilla right then and there. Once Camilla left, Damon stepped closer, voice taut with panic. Liz, I should have told you we had a working dinner. Why didn't you let me know you were coming home early? She stared at him, tears threatening to spill. I wanted to surprise you, but clearly I'm the one who's blindsided. Damon glanced around the restaurant, painfully aware of curious gazes from nearby tables. Let's not do this here. Let's go home and talk. The mention of home sparked a fresh wave of anger in Elizabeth. Home, which smells of another woman's perfume. She forced her voice steady. Fine, but I want the truth, Damon. They said little during the tense ride back. In the penthouse, Elizabeth motioned for him to sit in the living room, flipping on all the lights as if to banish the shadows. She stood before him, arms crossed over her growing belly. What is going on, Damon? Who is Camilla Monroe to you, really? She demanded, her eyes burning with hurt. Don't lie. I know something isn't right. He started to speak, faltered, then tried again. She's been helping with the brand campaign. We got close, too close, but it's just stress. It meant nothing. Elizabeth's heart clenched at his halting confession. You're telling me you betrayed me with a meaningless fling. He buried his face in his hands. I never meant for it to happen, Liz. It got out of control. It was a mistake. I'm so sorry. A sob threatened in Elizabeth's throat, but she forced it back. She glanced around, her gaze landing on the master bedroom door. The memory of that unfamiliar perfume pulled her mind into a spiral. It's not just once, is it? She's been here, while I was away, pregnant with your child. Damon couldn't meet her eyes. Yes, he rasped. I don't know what to say, except I'm sorry. I never stopped loving you. I was lonely and weak, trembling with rage and heartbreak. Elizabeth turned away. The perfect life she'd imagined lay in shards at her feet. She pressed a hand protectively over her baby bump, realizing the full impact of his words. This was no minor indiscretion. It was a betrayal that called everything into question. Tears streamed down her face, but a steely resolve flickered in her eyes. Pack a bag, Damon, she said quietly, because I can't even look at you right now. You need to leave. He rose, desperation in his voice. Liz, please, I can fix this. She shook her head, stepping back. Not tonight, not here. Go. Damon swallowed hard, tears shining in his eyes as he retreated to the bedroom. Elizabeth sank onto the couch, each breath ragged, mind swirling with shock and anger. She had returned expecting a joyful reunion, only to find her world forever altered by the one person she had trusted above all others. For the first time in their marriage, Damon Carlyle packed an overnight bag with no clue of where he would stay. The doorman regarded him with polite confusion as he exited the penthouse after midnight. Guilt pressed on Damon's chest like a vise. He ended up at a luxury hotel a few blocks away, renting a suite under his name. Alone with his thoughts, he resisted the urge to call Camilla or Elizabeth. Every fiber of his being yearned to fix the damage, but he sensed that any immediate attempt would only worsen the storm. Meanwhile, Elizabeth locked herself in the penthouse, tears giving way to furious anger. She paced the living room, occasionally resting a hand on her belly as a reminder to stay calm for the baby's sake. Harriet's words echoed in her mind. If things get complicated, call me. But no call could erase what Damon had done. By morning, she phoned Harriet, voice trembling. The moment Harriet heard the pain in her friend's tone, she offered to fly in. Elizabeth agreed, relief mingling with heartbreak. "I need someone here," she whispered. "I can't face this alone." That same morning, Camilla Monroe strolled into Carlisle Innovations as though nothing had happened. She headed for Damon's office, only to find Gina Hall glaring at her from the reception desk. "Mr. Carlisle isn't here," Gina said curtly, eyes cold. "And I doubt he wants visitors." Camilla arched a brow, feigning innocence. "He has urgent business with me." Gina stood. "I think we both know you've caused enough trouble. If you're wise, you'll keep your distance." A flicker of annoyance crossed Camilla's face, but she said nothing more, turning on her heel and departing under the disapproving stares of staff who had heard the rumors. Elsewhere, Damon sat in the hotel suite, phone vibrating with a barrage of missed calls from the office, from board members, from associates. Everyone wanted updates on the city contract, yet Damon's mind was consumed by personal catastrophe. His lawyer even reached out, politely suggesting that any scandal could jeopardize the deal. In the penthouse, Harriet arrived by afternoon, letting herself in with the spare key. Elizabeth had left at the front desk. She found Elizabeth curled on the couch, pale and visibly distressed. Without a word, Harriet rushed over, embracing her friend. Elizabeth's tears flowed freely then, and Harriet murmured soothing words. When the sobs subsided, Harriet guided her to breathe calmly. "You need to take care of yourself and the baby first. Damon, that situation can't overshadow your health." Elizabeth nodded, letting Harriet help her stand. They prepared a simple lunch, though Elizabeth's appetite was nearly non-existent. She recounted Damon's betrayal in broken sentences, Harriet listening intently. "I feel so humiliated," Elizabeth whispered. "How could he do this now, of all times? When I was away, trying to be healthy for our child." Harriet's expression hardened. "There's no excuse, but decide what you need. Do you want him gone for good, or do you think there's anything left to salvage?" Elizabeth's eyes brimmed with tears again. She pictured their wedding day, Damon's vows, the sweet gestures he'd once shown. "I don't know," she admitted brokenly. "All I know is I can't look at him without thinking of that woman." As Harriet guided her to the bedroom to rest, Elizabeth grappled with the swirling questions of her future. Could she raise a child in a broken marriage? Could she trust Damon again? The once stable foundation of their life had cracked wide open, leaving her to decide whether to attempt repairing it or walk away entirely. And somewhere in a luxury hotel suite, Damon stared into the mirror, tormented by the realization that a single series of reckless nights could cost him the woman he truly loved and the family he had always dreamed of. It would take more than apologies to rebuild those shattered bonds if they could ever be repaired at all. Over the next few days, Elizabeth remained secluded in the penthouse under Harriet's care. She kept communication with Damon minimal, insisting she needed time to think. Harriet shielded her from calls and visitors, making sure Elizabeth's stress stayed as low as possible for the baby's sake. The tabloids caught wind of the scandal when an anonymous source leaked that Damon Carlisle had taken extended leave from Carlisle Innovations after a rumored affair. Social media buzzed with speculation, though no official statement emerged from Damon or the company. Camilla, for her part, tried to contact Damon repeatedly, sending texts that ranged from apologetic to defensive. He ignored them all. Guilt and shame roiled inside him, overshadowed by a growing desperation to salvage his marriage. When he finally mustered the courage to call Elizabeth, Harriet answered and told him coldly, "She's not ready to speak with you." Damon visited a lawyer to explore how to handle damage control, both personally and for Carlisle Innovations. The lawyer advised him to consider a public apology if the rumors worsened, but recommended focusing on private reconciliation first. Meanwhile, the city contract negotiations stalled, with officials wary of the swirling scandal. On the fifth day, Elizabeth allowed Damon to come to the penthouse under Harriet's watchful eye. He arrived with a bouquet of Elizabeth's favorite roses, a gesture that felt painfully inadequate given the gravity of his betrayal. Harriet let him in, her expression icy. He found Elizabeth sitting in the living room, arms folded over her growing belly. She looked tired, her eyes red-rimmed, but a quiet determination radiated from her. "I'm here to talk, to apologize," Damon began, voice trembling. "I'll do anything to make this right." Elizabeth held his gaze, hurt etched into every line of her face. "Don't say anything unless you mean it," she said quietly, "because what I need isn't just an apology. I need to know why. I need to know if there's any chance I can trust you again." Damon set the flowers aside, sinking to his knees before her. He told her everything, how he felt lonely and overwhelmed without her, how Camilla's relentless charm and their late-night work sessions led to a slow erosion of boundaries. He confessed he had tried to stop, but each time found himself drawn back in by a reckless desire. Elizabeth listened, tears slipping down her cheeks. When he finished, she spoke in a shaky voice. "You destroyed my faith in you at the worst possible time. How could you risk our family for a fleeting thrill?" He bowed his head, tears of his own shining. "I can't defend the indefensible," he whispered. "I was weak, selfish. I can't change what I did, but I promise I will never repeat it. I love you and our child more than anything." She let silence stretch, broken only by Harriet's quiet presence nearby. Finally, Elizabeth took a ragged breath. "If we are to have any future, you must cut all ties with Camilla, and I want it in writing. No business, no contact, no excuses." Damon nodded fervently. "Done. I'll sign any agreement you want. I'll have my lawyer draft it. And if you need more time before we can live together again, I'll respect that." Elizabeth's tears flowed anew at his desperation, her own heart torn between love and betrayal. "This won't be forgiven easily," she managed. "I don't know if I can move past it. But for our child's sake, I might try." Relief and sorrow warred on Damon's face. He reached for her hand, and this time she let him hold it tentatively, as though testing the fragile possibility of reconciliation. Harriet stood quietly, observing the raw pain and the flicker of hope. In that moment, Elizabeth realized her journey was far from over. The mistress had seduced her husband while she was away, leaving wounds that would not heal overnight. Yet the child she carried reminded her of the future she once envisioned with Damon. Whether they could still claim that future depended on a slow, difficult rebuilding of trust or a choice to walk away, forging a new life on her own. Only time, honesty, and unwavering commitment could determine if Damon and Elizabeth would ever share the love they once believed to be unbreakable. Thank you for following this tumultuous tale of secrecy, desire, and second chances. From the moment Elizabeth's health concerns sent her overseas, Damon's latent loneliness and ambition collided with Camilla's calculated seduction, lighting a spark that threatened to consume everything he and Elizabeth had built. When Elizabeth returned to uncover the truth, the raw devastation shattered her faith in a marriage she once deemed unshakable. Yet at the crossroads of betrayal and heartache, she found the strength to confront Damon and demand genuine change. If this story kept you on edge, if you felt Elizabeth's heartbreak, Damon's regret, and Camilla's cunning in every twist, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more riveting drama and enthralling real-life fiction to life. Join us for the next story full of passion, secrets, and the resilience of the human heart. Thank you for watching and reading, and we'll see you again soon.